Hey, everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. All right, so today we are going to change gears, I guess you could say, and we're going to work on today and probably for a very long time, the whole concept of living in the now. And I know this is something we've all been struggling with most of our time in the practice of the course, and maybe even before that. And we know Eckhart Tolle and many other spiritual people discuss or talk about the idea of being in the now. So I thought I would share information that is part of the course and different quotes and whatnot in regard to living in the now and what that all means. So we will.
But I think that a lot of people do live in the now, but they're not aware of it. Like people who sew and knit.
Oh, right. I think, well, and I think everybody's had an experience of living in the now, but even before they were in the course.
Yeah.
But how do I live there is the kind of the question, I guess you could say. So I had this awareness, let me see if I can find, of Helen. And Helen was somebody who could see pictures. From the time she was a very little girl, she would just close her eyes and she could see pictures. And when she was younger, they were always in black and white. And then as it got closer to the time for her to scribe the course, she started seeing pictures in color and then in motion as well. And one of the images that she had, in fact, I will just read what it has to say. But when these images came, it was just, she didn't even know that other people didn't have this experience. It was just, that's how, I guess you could say, normal it was for her. So at one point in time, she said I saw myself entering a cave in a rock formation on a bleak, windswept sea coast. The entrance to the cave was low. The cave was quite deep. All I found in it was a very old, large parchment scroll. Its ends were rolled around heavy, gold-tipped poles, the two sides touching as the scroll's center and tied together by a strip of parchment that fell away as my fingers touched it. I untied the end and opened the scroll just enough to expose the center panel, on which only two words were written, God is, and nothing else. Then slowly unrolled the scroll further, and tiny black letters began to appear on both side panels. The voice explained the situation to me. If you look at the left panel, you will be able to read about everything that happened in the past. And if you look at the right panel, you will be able to read about everything that happened in the future. The little letters on the side of the panel were becoming clearer and clearer, and for several minutes I was tempted to look at them. Then I made a decision. I rolled up the scroll to cancel everything except the center panel. I'm not interested in the past or the future, I said, and finally, I'll just stop with this. The voice sounded both reassuring and assuring. I was astonished at the depth of gratitude that it somehow conveyed. Thank you, it said. You have made it this time. Thank you. And that, it seems, was that.
So that is when you are with God.
That's when you're in the center. That is correct, Bob, and that's our goal. And so my creative genius here, just made a little chart here. And this is our scroll. And if we open the scroll, you will see God is. Okay, and that's our goal, is to come to God is. But if we unscroll it on this side, we go to the past. If we unscroll it this way, we are in the future. And as the Course speaks of, the only place where healing can happen is in the center, which means I have to close the doors to the past and to the future and live only in where God is. Okay, I did. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So, all right, so then it goes on to say, and this was taken from Absence from Felicity Buffet. Then it goes on to say that this concept is one of the things that was integrated into the course. And in Workbook 169, it says, oneness is simply the idea God is. And in his being, he encompasses all things. No mind, anything but him. We say God is, and then we cease to speak. For in that knowledge, words are meaningless. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. It has united with its source, and like its source itself, it merely is. We cannot speak, nor write, nor even think of this at all. It comes to every mind when total recognition that its will is God's has been completely given and received completely. It returns the mind into the endless present where the past and future cannot be conceived. It lies beyond salvation, past all thought of time, forgiveness, and the holy face of Christ. The Son of God has merely disappeared into the Father, and his Father has in him. The world has never been at all. Eternity remains a constant state. Pretty profound.
I had something I'd like to add to it.
Okay.
Well, 2 days ago, I was dreaming that I had hurt my shoulder. And I was in a tremendous amount of pain that I had never felt of before. And then I woke up, and 2 days later, I went off of the step and fell and hurt myself.
Okay. Well, I think sometimes we do have premonitions of things that could take place, and, that doesn't make them not happen, unfortunately. But I think, to me, one of the beauties of that kind of an experience, not that it's easy to put a beauty around that, because I know you're obviously uncomfortable, but is that on some level, that this was meant to be. That again, it doesn't make it easier to deal with, but it's almost as though there was a plan here that I'm not privy to yet.
Well, most of our lives are.
Well, I'm not saying that it was just that, definitely, yeah. Yeah, kind of. Well, and literally the Course says everything already happened. We're just viewing it the second time. And so I think moments like that can actually give us an awareness that, there's something going on much on a deeper level than I'm consciously aware of. Okay. All right. So the interesting thing with this is eventually, that Helen and Bill and Ken did go to Jerusalem, and while they were there, Helen saw the cave that she had seen. Well, much like your story, I'm getting goosebumps. She saw the cave that she had seen in her image, and of course burst out into tears. And she said, "This is the place where God is originated." So,
Yeah, I think that there's a book written on being in the now.
oh, there's lots of books written on being in the now. Yes. So with this, I'm going to revise the chart just a little bit. Instead of saying God is, we're going to replace it with now, because we're going to be talking about the concepts of now in who knows how long, but as we go through. But I think it's also important to realize that now is always available, but if I'm focused on the past or the future, it closes off the now. And that's very important, because I'm one or the other, just like the chart over here, we're either here or here. We're not in, these do not cross over in any way.
And
And
that chart is very creative.
thank you, Bob. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Did I name it? Oh, no. Well, I don't know. I guess I did, because it's very interesting chart, as all of you know, I'm a chart lady. It's like it kind of bubbles up inside of me, and then it just, and I can't make it go faster than it wants to go. So I got stuff all over the floor and everything, but eventually it does come together and we're good to go. So before I go on, a couple announcements. Number one, next week for real, we're going to be in the other room in the sanctuary. So instead of coming in the front door, you'll go past the front door to the second door. And hopefully I'll pass this around so people remember. And I will put this in the reminder for next week. And you just walk in the glass doors. There's a couple glass doors. Keep going straight and you'll find the sanctuary, and we'll have a circle there somehow, some way. So yeah. And I also want to, and I don't always do this, but remind everybody that I really appreciate people that come early, help me set up the room, people that stay afterwards and help me put things away. It is invaluable to me, because I'm always trying to get everything else hooked up and whatnot. So I certainly, definitely appreciate it. And any contributions of food, of course, are always appreciated as well. And also I appreciate the contributions both done in class or people sending things from being online, because we do have to pay rent here and for the Zoom classes. All right, so that being said, we're done with that part. Thank you. All right, so I thought before we actually go into some of the concepts of the presence or the now or the holy instant, because we can actually integrate all of those words. The now, the holy instant, the present really are all the same experience. But I thought before I started with that, I would just read a couple of lines that really describe what the completion of our goal of being able to be in the presence would look like or be experienced. Because I think sometimes it feels like we're going down this road and we sort of think we know what we want, but we're not real sure, but we know we don't enjoy what we're doing here. So we're encouraged to go forward, which actually reminds me of a story, again, another one of the images that Helen had that has always truly touched me. And it was a story of her being in a, well, not a cave, but a bottom of a well. And all she could see was this little teeny tiny crack of light at the very top. And all there was one cord or one rope. And she started climbing up the rope, got about halfway up. Her hands are bleeding. It's slippery. She's exhausted. She doesn't really even know if she makes it to the top that that's going to be anything. But she knows being in the, the well is not good. But she continues to pull herself up this rope. And I think in a lot of ways, that's how all of us are. I often refer to the Course as, a child learning how to take their first steps. But with that, I have a physical image of I'm a little child and somebody, a big person just walked across the room, and now I want to try to get up and do this. But I don't think we really have a firm, solid sense of what we're walking towards. But I thought these two quotes were quite beautiful. And one of them is in Workbook lesson 157, if anybody wants to read along. It's in paragraph 9. And we're just going to read the first 4 lines. I don't know if that's the whole paragraph or not. I find it. All right. Into Christ's presence will we enter now, serenely unaware of everything except his shining face and perfect love. The vision of his face will stay with you, but there will be an instant which transcends all vision, even this, the holiest. This you will never teach, for you attain it not through learning. Yet the vision speaks to your remembrance of what you knew that instant and will surely know again. And the other one is on text 390, paragraph 8.
What do you mean by what you knew that instant?
Because in a holy instant is a moment out of time and space where you don't exist. And every culmination of those holy instances take us to what's called a happy dream, where we're not disrupted or pulled away again into the past or the future or the belief in the separation.
Oh, because when it said, yet the vision speaks of your remembrance of what you knew that instant, I'm guessing that that instant was before we separated?
Correct. No problem. All right, so 390, paragraph 8. Yet there will always be this place of rest to which you can return. And it's actually a definition of once you've had that holy instant, you can return to that place of peace. And you will be more aware of this quiet center of the storm than all its raging activity. This quiet center in which you do nothing will remain with you, giving you rest in the midst of every busy doing on which you are sent. For from this center will you be directed how to use the body painlessly. It is this center from which the body is absent that will keep it so in your awareness of it. And I'm just going to read that line by line. Yet there will always be this place of rest to which you can return. Because, when you're here, and you're in the past and the future, it's saying, that place of rest is right here. But you have to relinquish this in order to be here, or be willing to relinquish it. Because, it's not us that's doing this, but it is me that says, no, don't want to go there. Help, show me who I am. And you will be more aware of this quiet center of the storm than all its raging activity. And think, I sometimes give the example of the tornado. The tornado is doing this, but the center is always there. And how much time do we spend in the raging swirling of the tornado versus going to that center? And, we use this chart a lot about the idea of, I'm called in all these different directions. But how many of them do I spend just in the now, in the center, in the holy instant? This quiet center in which you do nothing. And when you're in that place, we don't do anything, but I love the way the next line will explain to it. This quiet center in which you do nothing will remain with you, giving you rest in the midst of every busy doing on which you are sent. So it's not saying, go sit in the corner for the rest of your life. It's saying, live your life, but as you walk through the tornado of life, are you in the center as you go through I'm going to say it again, every busy doing in which you are sent. And, there's a story of Helen. She needed a new coat. And so she was in the store, and I don't know, let's say she wore size 10, I don't know what it was. And Jesus says, go to the section where there's size 14. And she's going, but I don't wear a size 14. I wear size 10. He said, go to that aisle. So she did. She starts looking through the 14s, and a man who she needed to connect with was in that aisle. she did eventually find, I think she found the coat where it was, as he said, but it's like, we say that prayer all the time. I'm here only to be truly helpful. Show me where you want me to go. And the minute somebody says, well, come over here, we go, no, I have other plans. I don't want to do that. I want to go do my own thing. And, for really listening, am I praying and then closing the door to an answer? And I know this is not always easy. So this is not coming from a place of judgment to anybody, because we all struggle with it. Or even, have you ever had a thing where you think about, well, I should do this, or I should go there, or I should check that, and then you don't do it. And then, an hour later you realize, oh, I should have gone back and checked that, because then I would have remembered to bring that which I needed. And I think it's real important when you have those moments and you that time didn't listen, don't beat yourself up. Just simply use it the next time when that impression comes to listen a little bit more carefully. Because the ego part of us always wants us to get out the hammer and beat ourselves up. And this is really about, I didn't get that nudge this time, but okay, maybe the next time I'll catch it, maybe the next time. And then you become much more fine-tuned with those nudges. And as he was talking about this, you will find that place and you'll return to it, because there's more of a draw to it. The chaos of the world does not pull you as strongly as it did before, because the sweetness of that internal connection starts to grow stronger, and the things of the world start to fall away a bit more.
What he was describing there is the same thing he described in the forgiveness. What is forgiveness?
Correct. Yes, definitely. For from the center will you be directed how to use the body painlessly. And what I think he means by that is, I'm not in charge anymore. So the physical Marianne is gone. The center of the now is going to walk through me. Even with Helen, she didn't know she was going to meet that man and the row where the 14s were. But the voice within her knew that's where she needed to be and what she had to offer at that time.
Oh,
yeah.
My book says sinlessly. Is that the same?
What does it say? Sinlessly. Okay. Yeah. When they revised the books, they went through, and every once in a while, the words are changed just slightly. So sinlessly, painlessly, the same kind of thing. It is this center from which the body is absent that will keep it so in your awareness of it. And, again, the miracle is defined as a moment out of time where you don't have a body, you don't have a mind, and there is no form. But it happens so quickly that we have that moment, and we don't even know that's kind of what happened. And then we come back into our body as though nothing happened, but something actually has happened. All right, so in the workbook, as those of you who have worked with the workbook, in the introduction, I'm just going to read a couple little sections, and it's on page 1 in the workbook if you wish to join me. Yeah. It would be kind of in the middle of your book. It should be after the text, and then it'll go into the workbook lessons, and yeah.
Just after the table of contents.
Right.
What's the title again?
It's called the introduction. It's right at the beginning of the first workbook lesson. If you go back a page, it'll be there.
Yeah.
Now you need to go in the middle where the workbook lessons are. Would somebody, Rose, would you mind helping her? Thanks. Got it? Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Sure. All right, so the first paragraph, a theoretical foundation such as the text provides is necessary as a framework to make the exercises in this workbook meaningful. Yet it is in doing the exercises that will make the goal of the course possible. An untrained mind can accomplish nothing. It is the purpose of this workbook to train your mind to think along the lines the text sets forth. Okay, so this whole idea of coming to the now is a practice, and we'll read a couple quotes out of the some of the workbook lessons just to show you how frequently he talks about the past and how it doesn't have any value. So we're going to go to paragraph 4 in the same page. The purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. So what does that mean? I'm clueless. And as long as I am in the past or the future, I'm going to be clueless. It can't be any other way. Because the only place I get the answer is when I close the door to the past and future and I'm in the now. But as long as I think I know something, not much going to happen. All right, the exercise are planned to help you generalize the lessons so that you will understand that each of them is equally applicable to everyone and everything you see. And those of you who have gone through the workbook lessons, you know they're pretty bizarre. You know, nothing in this room means anything. This cup means nothing, blah, blah, blah. And initially, it's a little bit crazy making. And I remember doing the workbook lessons numerous times and then taking a break and then going back and going, oh my God, this is so weird. Why did I stick with this? But Jesus also suggests that you're not going to understand what this course is about or what these workbook lessons are about. Just do them. And in the doing of them, you will begin to have the experiences that will provide you with seeing the world through a different lens. Because certainly, how could anyone hear the words, nothing in this room means anything, and get that on your first round? It's not going to happen. And yet the truth is, nothing in this room means anything.
Well, if you're thinking with the ego,
Right.
that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's when you think with the Holy Spirit that their meaning becomes.
Correct. Yes. Yes. But the deal is we have to first recognize how often I'm not thinking with the
Yeah,
Holy
see
Spirit
where you're at.
and what I am and how I'm being called into the world. Because if I don't get how significant it is, I'm going to think everything's fine. You know, I don't need this course, or I need it on Monday, but not Thursday, you know, and literally it's, you know, am I in the past or the future, or am I really in the now? And if I'm not, how do I get into the now? And what is the value of me getting into the now?
And it's telling that the new chart that you have made has this sort of blank page between the past. and the future.
Absolutely. Because,
And that's what the ego is terrified of, that
Yeah.
nothingness.
well,
that
yes,
We perceive coming from the ego
Right.
as being what
Yes.
we're asked to do. to go
Correct.
into.
and certainly, you know, we've been playing in this arena since the Big Bang. We're very, very, very addicted to the world as it is. Not only are we addicted to it, we projected into it exactly what we wanted it to be, which is a camouflage to keep me from remembering that it's my mind that is the cause of everything that takes place in the world. And as long as I'm focusing on stuff in the world, I'm not going to ever go to my mind, which is the only place where healing can take place. So it's a perfect camouflage to keep us extremely busy in the world and never come to a place of healing. And I mean, I've studied lots of different spiritualities throughout the years, and there are almost none that really go to this is the mind problem, not the body problem. And we know even in class, when somebody's got a problem, people, oh, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? We seldom ever say, go to your mind, ask for healing, because we're so acclimated to fix the world and the things in the world. Now, having said that, we'll probably continue to do that, so don't feel guilty when you do it. But when you catch it, remember, where is the problem? And you know, that example I give so often of it's raining in my kitchen. So I go out and get a mop and I mop it up. That's a good thing to do. Somebody could fall. But the problem isn't the rain on the floor. The problem is the ceiling or the roof that needs to be healed. And I can mop forever, but if I don't get up on the roof and fix the roof, I'm gonna mop forever. And that's what we've literally done, is mop forever.
Where you think the cause is out here, and that's nothing. to do.
Yes, that is absolutely
So,
correct.
when he's telling you, seek and do not find.
Yep.
That's what you get out here,
Exactly.
nothing.
That's exactly what we're gonna get, and we will always get. And,
Right.
you know, there's some of the workbook lessons that say, you know, do whatever you think you need to do, but this is the answer. And until you get to the answer, you're not gonna have the answer. So,
The real alternative tells you.
yep,
You're seeking vainly.
yes, exactly. All right, so I have a couple of quotes, if I can find, oh, yeah. Okay, just maybe. Oh, here we go. No, just trying to look at a couple of the quotes that I found, but oh, here we go. All right, so these are just little phrases from different workbooks, and I won't give the numbers, but if somebody hears something that they want to write down or whatever, by all means, stop me and I'll be glad to share with them. But the first one is, I see only the past. Well, I see only the past because my mind is coming from the past. My mind is not in the moment, which is over here. So, I mean, this is workbook 7. So think about what the significance of, I'm looking at the past. And if I'm looking at the past, I'm going to then respond from a place of believing the past is what I need to work on. But it's not. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Again, very similar. Another workbook lesson, I see only the past. Let me remember that I look on the past to prevent the present from dawning on my mind. Let me understand that I am trying to use time against God. Because again, I'm, in time, I'm closing the door to God. Stay away, dude. I got this covered. That's a pretty significant line. I'm going to read that again. Let me understand that I am trying to use time against God.
So everything we're doing out here. is
Absolutely.
doing that.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything.
Yes. Let me learn to give the past away, realizing that in so doing, I'm giving up nothing, which means the entire illusion is nothing. Well, that sounds, nothing, meaningless, an attack on God and the whole deal, all of that. But we have to take ourselves where we are, which is, I'm not quite ready to grasp that whole ball of wax. But in this moment, am I willing to replace what he has to say instead of what I have to say? And as the workbook lessons continue, the practice of it, and I've been studying the course for 40 some years, I guess, and it's amazing to me that things still come up in a way that I didn't understand them before, it's almost like it's squeezing into that awareness of what this is really saying over and over and over.
Well, that's what Bill was looking for. There must be another way.
Absolutely. But my way of thinking there's another way, and the way is quite
Yeah,
different.
From the world's aspect.
Yes, yeah. I want a magic formula that says, okay, here you go, you're done. Yay, okay. Instead, they just go knock you over with all this stuff to play with. All right, so let me remember that I look on the past to prevent the present from dawning on my mind. Now, see, these are pretty significant concepts. This isn't just, oh, we made a little mistake. What this is saying is, I chose this. I chose to keep the present from dawning in my mind. I chose to keep God away because I'd rather do it my way.
Well, we chose this to keep the body intact
Yep.
within the world. Everything's a distraction.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't suppose that's any accident that your little cover over the now, the present moment looks like a piece of chocolate.
Well, I was thinking it was part of the parchment, but chocolate will work too.
Hershey.
Yeah, whatever is your favorite. All right. So let me learn to give the past away, realizing that doing so, I think I already read that, but whatever. I'll read it again. Let me learn to give the past away, realizing that in so doing, I'm giving up nothing. And again, we're ultimately giving up nothing, but because we cherish the past at this point in time or the future, most of these quotes are about the past, but the future or the past really do apply the same way. But we think I'm losing something, but in essence, I'm gaining everything.
What's the body built of?
Not much.
Well, really, think about, what you did in the past and what the future's gonna look like.
Right. And look at how much time you spend
Exactly.
in the past or the concern of the
It's
future.
fruitless.
It's fruitless, and yet we spend 99.99% of our day there. Yep. Yes.
It goes with, I want to be clear as you read, listen to the advice. And when you talk about are we re-educating the ego? Are you speaking to the ultimate me?
We're speaking to the ultimate me, which is by becoming aware of what the ego set up looks like, is, and why it was put into place, and why we identify so heavily thinking that I am the body, when in essence, that's not who I am at all. And neither is that who my brother is.
You're talking-
The Son of God.
He is always,
Right.
did you hear my word? Always talking to the Son of God throughout the book. It just takes us a long time to figure that out, but he's not.
Separation, because we're so, like you talked about many times, enmeshed with the ego.
Mhm.
It feels like me, and sometimes I start to feel shame, feel bad about myself, and it's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I want to hear from a different place.
Correct. Yeah. And that, and again, I've given this example many times, especially around Halloween, that we're all wearing a costume, and that costume is a costume of, I'm not good enough. I have lack. I'm a piece of shit. I'm, there's the course says, I think I am the home of evil, sin, and darkness. That represents my costume, but that's not who I am. The who I am that God only knows is your love. You've always been love, and you will always be love. But we also have to turn that around and recognize that applies to my brother equally. Because my brother is simply expressing themselves through their costume, and who they really are is that love as well. And that's why we're asked to give up the past of what we experience when we look in the mirror or when we look at our brother, especially if they're expressing in a way that's not very loving. Well, the costume can't express in a loving way. It can only express in the results of this choice. But if I'm willing to push it aside, close the past off and say, okay, show me another way, then I'm saying, all right, I'm ready to connect with love. And I want you to show me what that means, because I don't know how to do that. And if I think I'm doing it, and I know we've all attempted this throughout our lifetimes, we've tried to be good people, we try to do nice things and all that kind of stuff, but that's not the answer this course is talking about. What the course is talking about is you're looking through the wrong formula, because this character here is coming from this part of my mind. And if I'm coming from this part of my mind, the answer is not going to be available because I'm living in the past or in the future. It's only when I drop the story of anything that I think I know and say, wait, you show me. I'm clueless. That's the best place we can be in, is when we come to that moment where we say, I don't know. All right. Let me learn to do, I already read that one again. Let us give thanks today that we are spared a future like the past. And that's a nice little statement. If I don't spend my time in the past, then my future is not going to be the same as my past was. Because if I stay in the present, then a whole nother experience will develop from that place. Today we leave the past behind us, never more to be remembered. Well, how's that going, guys? Sounds so easy, right? And I know last week I ended the class with the question, basically, are you really willing to meet a brother differently? And I encourage people to pay attention during the week. Do I really want to see my brother differently when I'm upset and angry and irritated and I'm justified to prove that they're wrong and I'm right? Because the door won't swing. It won't swing up as long as I'm back here with my boxing gloves on. And I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that this is an easy transition, because we're so addicted to living from the perspective of kill or be killed. It is our natural and automatic response to everything in the world. So if you find yourself there, just go, okay, I guess I'm afraid of the love of God, because ultimately that's really what it means. I'm too afraid to let go at this point, and so I'm going to cling to the past or the future because that's my security blanket.
Am I willing to see myself differently?
Well, or am I willing to see? It doesn't matter which way the door swings. Yeah.
Because
What we don't want, yeah.
Ourselves,
Yep.
I'm my brother.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why he's the gift.
Yep.
For showing you what's really in your mind.
Yes.
And
And
what's in your mind is guilt, right?
yes, what is in
Yes.
your mind is guilt. Yes. Of which you then project on your brother, and then you blame your brother for the reflection of that guilt. And so if we turn that around and go, wait a minute, that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies in my mind that believes in guilt. Because the first, right, the first step here when we chose this was we took on guilt, sin, and fear. And we've lived in that ever since.
And that's what we believe.
That's what we
about
believe.
ourselves.
That's what we believe
That's
about
why we
ourselves.
Projected the world.
Yep.
To get rid of it. We couldn't stand it.
Yeah. And once again, with the workbook lessons in a lot of ways is to help you very gradually accept the fact that God is totally loving. And there is nothing to fear in walking towards God, because right now we're terrified of walking towards God because we believe we killed him off and he's going to come and get us and do to us exactly what we thought we did to him, much like the same way we relate to our brothers. So since we're not in contact with the memory of what the cause was, and we don't remember killing off God, none of us do, how do I respond in relationship to my brother who's in front of me, or that character in the mirror that I'm looking at? Doesn't matter. I don't have to go very far.
They're both the same.
They're both the same. And they're both showing me what's going on in my mind.
With you.
Yep.
Right.
And this is not about feeling bad, because that's where I'm coming from. It's about stopping and go, okay, I must be aligned with the ego mind. And now I have another choice. And when I'm ready, I can choose it. And if I'm not ready right now, that's okay too. At least you're being honest with yourself, because before we thought, if that idiot would just leave me alone, I could be just totally at peace. Well, that's not correct.
And I heard Ken talk about this in a way that I understood it at a different level.
Mhm.
And he said, you never want to deny or argue with your brother's ego.
Right. Well, I mean, if you really think about what good does it do you? I mean, has that ever worked? And even if you do argue with your brother and it appears you won that round, what do you really have? You have nothing. But look how hard, yeah, right. Look how hard you tried.
And he came up with that answer. He says the same thing in the correction of error.
I'm sure he says it over.
No, he says, yeah, he says everything over and over because he knows how unacclimated to this understanding we are.
But you're using your ego to argue with their ego, so they're not guilty, it's you.
Yeah, ultimately correct. Yeah. And you know, I give the example of this is what most relationships look like. And when one of you stops, that one has to do something different. Either they're going to keep, you know, challenging and then you'll come back to your pattern, or they're going to go find somebody else to play with because they're not done playing. And that's okay, because they're not done playing. We've had times in our lives we weren't ready to let go of playing. But we have to really question, you know, am I contributing to the very thing that I say I don't want? And the answer is usually yes. Yeah, surprise, surprise. But in a way, Helene, you know, now that we've been understanding this through the course, we can say that. But the truth is, before that, we didn't really understand. We were literally and are still contributing to the thing I say I don't want. Because if I only wanted peace, stop, I'm done.
Well, it felt like we was being responsible to answer. That's
Well,
what-
that,
that's
but
what it
again,
felt
yeah,
like, being
yep.
responsible to answer.
Yep.
That seemed like the right thing to do.
Yep.
But now, it doesn't.
Right, yep. But that's a big step, right? All right, why wait for heaven? It is here today. Time is the great illusion. It is past or in the future. Yet this cannot be if it is where God wills his son to be. How could the will of God be in the past or yet to happen? What he wills is now, without a past and wholly futureless. It is as far removed from time as is a tiny candle from a distant star, or what you choose from what you really want. And I can remember years ago having a confrontation with somebody, and I was, you know, they say fit to be tied. I don't know exactly where that saying comes from, but there I was. And I was so angry, so upset. So, I mean, I literally could have killed. I know I could have. And I, you know, I think I was just starting to practice the course, and I kind of, my mind flipped and said, you know, there, you know, I don't know if it said there's another way or whatever. And I can remember thinking, I want an answer, but no answer came. But the answer was stop. Stop doing what you're doing. That's not love. And again, I was looking at that person's costume, and the costume was doing a wonderful job of engaging me, and I was doing a wonderful job of engaging in the costume from my costume.
Your stance.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you just can't stop.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there will come a moment when you can stop. And I think in that moment, you're looking for some answer or something to come, but sometimes the answer is just simply stop. Don't go there. That's not, you're going the wrong way. Yeah. All right, so here's another one. You free the past from what you thought before. And again, if I'm in the past or if I'm in the future, that's where my mind is. My mind is saying, I don't want freedom. I want the past or the future. Leave me alone. But once I flip that, I have another choice. You free the future from all ancient thoughts of seeking what you do not want to find. Oh, isn't that lovely? And, you know, I think I don't want to find it, but in truth, I really do want to find it so that I can play the part of an innocent victim and make somebody else the problem. And there's that delightful section in the course where it talks about when you choose for the ego, we send out these little feelers looking for the prey to come and drop it in front of the master's feet, all bloody. And we say, oh, I don't like, oh, that's gross, that's terrible. But on some level, okay, I can continue to play my game. All right, the present now remains the only time. Here in the present is the world set free. And again, the only place where healing can take place is in the present or the now. For as you let the past be lifted and released the future from your ancient fears, you find escape and give it to the world. Now, when you drop your past and future, you align with the present, and then you automatically offer that to the world. Just as when you were in the past and future, you were offering that to the world. Okay? But it's all up to us and in our hands. The mind engaged in planning for itself is occupied in setting up control of future happenings. It does not think that it will be provided for unless it makes its own provisions. And this is one that's talking a little bit about the future. Time becomes a future emphasis to be controlled by learning and experience obtained from past events and previous beliefs. And isn't it interesting that we always plan for the future based on the past? So how could I possibly make the future come from a clear place if I'm leaning on the past to make my decision for the future? Now, having said that, obviously in our daily life experiences, you're going to, well, tomorrow I have to go to work, or I don't have to go to work because it's Sunday, but continue to do what you have to do in the world, but keep looking through the lens of how I'm trying to manipulate, control, fix, make the world according to Mary Ann, because we don't even realize we're doing that all day long.
The truth is, we don't know what
Good point. Yes. And the difference is, if I'm planning to do something to take the Holy Spirit with me as I go do and say and be, or whatever it is I'm doing in the world, that's where the difference comes in. I'm asking him to come with us. But at the same time, if he says, now go to rack size 14 instead of 12, do I listen when I'm told that information, or do I resist that and make my own plan again? It overlooks the present, for it rests on the idea the past has taught enough to let the mind direct its future course. So again, if I'm not in the moment, I'm living in the past, and with the past, I think I have enough information to create my future. And he keeps trying to help us understand that's not in your best interest. Do what you got to do, but that's not in your best interest.
That's what he tells you.
The lessons, the workbook lessons, they take us very gently.
Yes.
But one step at a time, and we are basically eroding our belief system. which is
Absolutely.
the ego thought system. And at the same time, there's a desire in us to construct more beliefs. And I'm like in the middle of like looking all of this at all of the structures
Yeah.
and the beliefs that I have in place and challenging them as
Yeah.
they come up.
Yeah.
And I think I might have mentioned this last week, but it was so helpful to me in one of Ken's workshops. He says it's not that you don't have beliefs, it's that you loosen your grip.
Right. I love those words. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they can be useful.
Yeah.
You know, it gets me to the doctor on time. If I
Exactly.
believe in time.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, but in the meantime, I'm deconstructing time.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, I think in the practice of whether it's the workbook or reading or coming to class, every time you have another crack of awareness, you're becoming more in tune with this. And it accumulates over the years. And as you keep going forward, yeah, you're going to, have the things of the past come up, but it's almost as well in that wonderful Back to the Future movie, which I always love, the picture where Michael J. Fox had a picture of his siblings on his guitar. And his parents were not going to meet now. So the family members were dissipating and falling away. Well, literally this holding on to the past and this whole thought system just starts to kind of loosen. And yeah, I still go my way and do my stuff, but it just doesn't grab me like it used to grab me. It's so freeing. And you will almost catch them every once in a while as they fall away and go, oh, that's where I used to be. I know that was me, a couple years back. And it's so beautiful when those moments happen. But again, we have to do the footwork, which is to keep working on it, keep doing the workbook lessons, keep, practicing, because the more you in tune with this, you're saying to the universe, yeah, I'm serious. This is really where I want to go and what I want to be and what I want to accomplish. Even though I get pulled in, drawn in, and whacked out with all the craziness of the world, that other part is growing. And it's, settling in there a little bit more. And then you'll catch yourself, flipping that even before it gets out of line. You go, wow.
What's that movie with, well, she was a celebrity.
I know the movie, but I can't think of the name of it off the top, but it was, yeah.
It feels like.
Mhm.
Like that.
Yes,
Remember
yep.
when she was in the airplane.
Yep.
she
And
was-
everything was going, yeah.
She was falling apart, right?
Mhm.
It feels just like that. for
Yep,
me.
yep.
The experience of letting go of what we've identified with for so long.
And I think as we progress, the initial steps are pretty out of whack. And as we keep going, they become, I think, less threatening. But of course, initially, it's going to be a bit of a challenge because we've held so firmly to this thought system as this is it, man, I know. And letting go of what I think I know and eventually coming to a different knowing of something beyond me. And I think one of the things I read, I meant to point out, which I didn't, is this whole idea of you don't know, you just don't know. His answer knows. But you have to be willing to go through the steps to take us to that place where we can get that. Yeah.
I found that the words, now what,
Mm.
still apply, but I get an answer. I look forward to an answer because I don't know. And if I did know, it wouldn't help because I remember that.
Yeah.
So helpless under circumstances. So I just go, now what? I
Mhm.
kick the door, I do whatever I do, but I
Yep.
feel better because I know that I'm just fooling myself and it's
Yeah.
gonna, if I really want to know, it's.
Yeah.
Mary Ann, I don't remember that part in Back to the Future.
Yeah, he was on the stage and he was playing in front of the high school kids. Pardon me, no,
Because
in the present, yeah, and because his mom was falling in love with him, she wasn't gonna hook up with her dad or with his dad. And so he had this picture of his siblings and they just started to fade away. Yeah.
watch that again. Is that
Yeah.
one or two?
No, this is the first one. Yeah, this was the first one. And turn up. Okay, so one more section from the workbook, and then we'll go into another section or a couple other sections. So the mind that plans is thus refusing to allow for change, because if I'm going from the past and making the future, then and making my plans, I'm not allowing for the change, and the change would be not coming from me, coming from the truth. What it has learned before becomes the basis for its future goals. Goodness.
Whoa.
Were you paying attention? No.
Food planning,
All right, its past experiences directs its choice of what will happen. So again, if I'm living in the past, I'm bringing that into the future. I'm not in the moment, and I'm going to repeat the same old thing again. And I'm always going to be identified with the ego, and I'm always going to experience guilt, sin, and fear, separation, kill or be killed. It comes with the program. Yep.
So isn't it really trying to get us to ask God for help first?
Yes,
Before
ma'am.
anything else happens, or you even imagine it, to say, God, help me to get through this day, through this hour, help me.
Yep. Well, then,
Because otherwise you are planning. I
Yes,
mean, you are,
yes.
gonna get up and do this and that, and I guess, and then you're just disappointed.
and in the chapter 30, where it talks about begin again, it basically talks about that. He invites us to start your day by connecting. And then as you go through your day, if you lose it, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. But it requires for most of us practice to bring it back, because we get, I'm going along peaceful, and then one of these calls me and I'm out the door, slam the door, because I don't want to go back in. And we forget. And how often, can you be on some issue in your life that just goes on and on for days and months and years even? And then it's like, oh, I could have had a V8. Why didn't I choose? Well, don't be hard on yourself when you find yourself, understanding intellectually what the course is, but not living the course fully yet. And simply go, oh, I guess I forgot. Bring it back. And don't make a big deal about, I didn't do it perfectly. Because that's what the ego loves. As long as I'm in the past, he's got me wrapped around his little finger, and he loves it.
But I think the just doing the practice brings you more and more to that, because I had an experience yesterday. My boss was gonna be calling me at 3 o'clock to do a review. Now, I've only worked there for a year. I work from home, so, he was gonna call me and give me a review and a raise, blah, blah, blah. And my coworker, who is also a friend of mine, she calls me up and she's like, now he's gonna ask you what you've learned in this year, and then he's gonna ask you, how you plan on, getting better at your job, and blah, blah, blah. And after I got off the phone with her, I had just, a moment of, I'm gonna have to write this stuff down, and then the thought came up, I'm not gonna do anything. Whatever I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say.
Mhm.
And he called and he didn't ask me anything.
But look at how in this, that obviously your job is, your livelihood or whatever, but even something as seemingly insignificant as you're going to encounter somebody that you had a problem with before, and look at how you're already deciding, I'm going to say this, I'm going to do this. Or even if it's a pleasant experience, how we're planning ahead, what's it going to be like, what's it going to look like, how's it going to taste, whatever. And we're not in the moment when we're doing that. And even if you're not ready to break that habit, as you might look at that way, just at least become aware, oh, look at me go. I'm playing God once again. And do I really need or want to play God any longer? And it's amazing when we drop the need to be God, the world takes place just lovely without me. It's so amazing. It falls into place, probably better than it would had I been in charge. Yeah.
It's irrelevant, but it always bothers me that Christmas is coming, right?
Mhm.
People are buying presents galore. Well, I should say they will be buying presents galore. They already have started.
Oh, yeah.
The stores are already started.
Christmas carols are,
Is that the now? It doesn't seem like it should be. You buy a present for somebody for the future. It's so prevalent. And everybody, I have a present. Can't go there without a present. Gotta give this kid a present. Gotta give that person a present. I think it's crazy. So,
yep, right.
but
Hard to get them really,
Say yes or no.
Right.
or nothing.
I'm not-
What am I, no, I'm not saying anything, I mean, I actually.
What are you supposed to think? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I guess so, I mean, you know, some people are just are like trying to explain, oh, no, I have to do this, oh, I have to do that, well, I can just listen, which I do.
Well,
But it's just.
Is
like,
it true that you have to do that?
No, I don't think it's true, no.
Well, then
People want to make sure that
Oh, yeah.
what's the problem?
this.
I listen, I just listen, and that's the problem, listening to all this. Listening and getting involved in all that crazy, it's the listening.
I think one of the things that I try to be aware of, is I gotta think of a president bias
Right.
person.
Right.
Yeah, that gets this, you know, that gets interrupted sometimes, and not all the time, but because, you know, if that person's meant to get a president will show up. I mean, I saw something in the other day, I wasn't shopping, for anything, I was just out shopping, and I saw something that I thought a friend would really like, and I bought it.
Right.
I had no, you know, it's not this stressful, oh my God, I have to get presents for this person and this person, right, I don't do that.
So in other words, if you would have seen that present, that person may not have gotten it.
Yes, right,
I like that.
From her,
Right.
right. for
putting
me.
by the guy, somebody else.
It's just like, it's not the now at all. It's constantly-
I find that so, see, I don't like how that feels.
No.
That's where I go with it. Trying to get presents for somebody and I can't find them and I don't know what to get. That's, ugh.
I know.
But what I would do, I'll catch you in a second, Andrea, is, you know, it sounds like you're upset by listening to people that are doing that, okay? So you might want to go back to, okay, are there ways that I do that in other ways that I'm not aware of? Because your peace wouldn't be taken away by what they were saying or doing unless there was some attraction within you. So,
Because it
just kind
doesn't
of-
seem like they're happy with what
right.
they're not happy, they're trying to push off some of that, you know.
But my question to you is, are there places that you're not really happy with what you're doing, that you're seeing that in them? And that's what you really want to examine or bring back to the drawing board, I guess you could say, yeah. Yeah,
I
Andrea.
just had this thought last week about the ego and the Holy Spirit in different, occasions and, you know, experiences, that there's only one thought between the you of the ego and the you of the Holy Spirit. And I said, I don't know, please show me. So there's only one thought. So whatever they're doing, running around doing, some of you doing, running around doing things too. You're trying to
Exactly.
compare so they shouldn't be doing that at all. They're so stupid. But instead of looking at yourself and what you're dealing with, you're trying to deal with them. They have to deal with it on their own.
Yep.
So it's interesting, you know, how we want to help everybody and think, you know, you're not doing well if you're doing all that, you know, and I found that when I just would see something or, if I took a notion to get something for somebody, I always felt happy about it.
Right.
You know, I always feel like it's Christmas. I wanna participate. I wanna, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I've actually been like kind of pushed by an energy, you know, through sometimes some birthdays that really weren't that relevant to me, but I was kind of pushed to go, no, we'll go over here because this
Yep.
is somebody you really love and you want to, and you really kind of dig deep in yourself for what it is you're going to give them that means a lot.
Right.
And so I guess that's the difference, is that I just have asked the Holy Spirit and I take the Holy Spirit with me on the shopping trip.
Yep.
And that's what,
A wine shopping trip.
well, I mean, if I
All the
have
things,
a
yeah,
job,
everything.
Give of yourself.
Well, that's true. That's true. And then, but sometimes if you have money, I mean, we're not living in the pioneer days, you're not gonna make you know, you, it's up yourself, you have money, well, you go for it. I mean, I'm okay.
I'm just asking, you're not.
Well, I don't know why not. I don't care. This is what occurred to me
No, no.
in my iceberg. Okay, so that was what I just felt like. I got real clear that one evening. And
Right.
there's really only one thought between the you, like you get mixed up about the pronouns. Well, the word you is the way you express physical body there's not another word really for us except through the Holy Spirit. So the you of the ego and the you, or the me of the ego and the me of the Holy Spirit. So we could be doing the same things, right? We're doing the
Yes.
same thing.
Yes,
We're
yes,
doing the
yes.
same thing, but we're asking for help with what we're doing, or then we're not doing it. So we're following a different guide than what they all are doing. And then you feel better because you don't have to tell them that, because you're having such a good time and you're just happy, you're happy at Christmas. Why are you happy at Christmas? What's wrong with you? I asked to see it differently because that was something that really got on my nerves years ago,
Yep.
People telling me, you don't have any money, don't buy things for Christmas. I said, stop telling me how to celebrate, Christmas. And it's not about Jesus's birth. It's about a heightened sense of awareness and wanting to give what I have to share. I don't feel like anybody owes me anything for the oranges. It's just this, how it feels good to me.
Like in the moment, what is the right thing for me?
Exactly. And, if we really question in the moment, you're always okay. If you're going through a really challenging time, stop. Am I okay in this moment? And you are.
Always.
But the ego is always, but what about? And what about now? Another form of practicing that moment. All right, so what it has learned before becomes the basis of future goals. Its past experience directs its choice of what will happen. And it does not see that here and now is everything it needs to guarantee a future quite unlike the past, without a continuity of any of the old ideas and sick beliefs. Anticipation plays no part at all, for present confidence directs the way. So again, the more we can spend our day and moments in our day in the moment, the more we're inviting the answer that comes not from me to come forth. All right. So the only aspect of time that is eternal is now. Miracles are both beginnings and endings, so they alter the temporal order. They are always affirmation of rebirth, which seem to go back but really go forward. They undo the past in the present and thus release the future. And that's actually one of the miracles at the beginning of the book. So I'll read that again. The only aspect of time that is eternal is now. So again, now is where we do the healing. Now is where we connect with eternity. Miracles are both beginnings and endings, and so they alter temporal order. And, we're used to time, click, 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 click. This throws that all in a different thing because it doesn't go by the same rules that the world goes by. They are always affirmations of rebirth, which seem to go back, but really go forward. And again, it's skewing our experience of time, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. They undo the past in the present and thus release the future. Okay, so again, past or future blocks my connection with the now. When I close the door to the past and the future and ask to see it now, that's the place where healing will unfold. And then the past that unfolds will not come from my ego. It will come as a result of the change of my mind. All right. So let's see. The ego and false autonomy. It is reasonable to ask how the mind could ever have made the ego. In fact, it is the best question that you could ask. There is, however, no point in giving an answer in terms of the past because the past does not matter. and history would not exist if the same errors were not being repeated in the present. So basically, there's a place in the course where it said the tiny took a time took place, and that was what caused the future to unfold. And most people will say, well, I don't remember kicking God out of heaven, off the throne, and I don't remember killing God off, but why does it continue? Well, it continues because I'm still operating out of the past and all the increments of the ego. So even though I don't necessarily remember that first moment, I'm living that first moment over and over and over if I'm living from the past.
How do you treat your brother?
Or how do I treat myself
Or
as well?
yourself,
Yep,
right.
exactly.
I'll show you what you.
Yep. All right, abstract thought applies to knowledge because knowledge is completely impersonal and examples are irrelevant to its understanding. Well, there's a special one. They're impersonal. Well, what does that mean? That means they're not coming from the personal. It's not about me. It's not about my body. It's not about time. It's not about space. It's about healing.
It's all inclusive.
Correct.
Used to be a show. Not about time, it's not about space, it's about two men and places.
I don't remember that one.
TV show.
Yeah, that
It-
is.
Was it Bewitched? No.
No.
Yeah, it does sound a little like a bewitched-y song, right? All right.
It's about time, it's about space, it's about two, something in a stranger's place.
And the course would say, it's not about time, it's not about place, it's in this whole new place. If we allow it to happen, all right. So the abstract thought applied to knowledge because knowledge is completely impersonal. And understand the word knowledge in the course does not mean information in my mind. It means my knowing of this, okay? So examples are irrelevant to its understanding. And, how often do people in the group share a miracle that they've had and they say, well, words just don't express it because we're coming from an abstract, well, I should say, coming from an abstract experience, and then we're trying to put it into words in a time frame experience. And someone might shake their, agree with you because they've had an out of time experience and they know what that's experienced as, but you can't put it into words. Perception, however, is always specific and therefore quite concrete. And we're very addicted, used to concrete. And, as Tashara said earlier, as we progress through this, there's times when you feel like there's not a whole lot to hold on to, and that's not a very comforting experience. When I'm used to concrete and solid and something to hold on to, something to, point a finger at, whatever it may be. And so it's almost like a stepping down into the presence of what you really are. Look as the Holy Spirit looks and understand as He understands, because that's basically what you're doing when you're asking for healing is show me how you see and experience this, because the way I'm experiencing it looks like this. And I think it's actually quite beneficial and helpful to start with, this is my experience, and I think it should turn out this way, and I know best. Start with that because that's the facts of where you're sitting at this point. But once you get through that, then push that aside and then ask, you show me, how do you see my brother through your lens instead of my lens? And remember, this can be applied to the most silly, insignificant situation in your life. As you begin to practice this more and more, that little irritation that, the person does who you live with, whatever things that occur when you're driving, any little irritation that can come up is a process that can be worked through this experience. Okay, I see this, but you show me what you see instead.
I was in Aldi's yesterday. I had one container of yogurt. So I go to check out. There are 2 cash registers open. I picked one, they were both, you know, lined up with people with shopping carts piled to the hilt. And right next to me was a case of, you know, a refrigerated case of something, and there, the store worker was moving things, you know, from his cart, you know, over to this and
Right.
putting them in there. And I was kind of sticking out, you know, into his aisle, and so I, you know, corrected that. I kind of got back in when I could, but it was really jammed tight there. I had the thought, you know, that he should be opening another register and not doing.
Boy, have I had that thought before.
And I said, you know, how about if we look at this with the Holy Spirit? And I took a moment just to go to that spacious place.
Right.
And I didn't think any more about it. It's like whatever's gonna happen, is gonna happen. And I look up, he's over there by the cash register beckoning me.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yep.
I need do nothing.
And we do need to respect the thought that pops up in your mind. But if you decide that's the way this has to get healed, then you're in charge instead of, I don't know.
Whatever happens is okay with me at this point.
And that's a big step from where we started for
So
sure.
that's where you got out of your, that's where you were not in your body.
Right.
You
We-
were,
yes, yep.
experienced a moment out of time.
Yep.
At peace.
Mhm.
And because of whatever will be.
Yes. But that means I can't take my old story with me. I start with the old story, but I don't stay with the old story because that would put me in the past. If I want to stay in the past, as it said, I'm going to flip over and bring my past into the future. And, you know, we so often think, well, I don't want my past to be repeated. I want to find peace now, but I want to bring my past to the future. And that's not where I'm going to find a change. It's only when I release that past and go, I don't know. I think I know, but I don't know. Then, you know, the curtain can reveal itself and bring us another way.
So isn't that the whole premise of the, Alcoholics Anonymous movement, that there's another way?
Yeah. Yep.
I understand that I'm something, a higher power than I'm able to get to. So that's a whole, I just felt this week like that was a whole movement
Oh, yeah.
around the Course in Miracles that occurred before that, like they acknowledged a higher being.
Right.
And that was the difference between, even though my father went to church all the time, he could not let go the reins of who he was in terms of how to manage things. So that was the missing piece right
Yep.
there that I
Spiritual.
could not, a spiritual awakening. He was a good person. I mean,
Right.
he just didn't have he felt like all that was mumbo jumbo and, it was splitting hairs about something that he was very strongly, and he also felt that he had control over it.
Yep. Which comes right back down to the little willingness. If I'm not willing, whether it's in AA or the course or anything that comes along, then I'm still in control. And
Well, I think he was frightened of the whole idea
Sure.
of letting it go to some power he couldn't put his finger on.
Sure.
Scary.
Yep.
The priest was there and telling you what to do and all this, and you just kept going through all that. It was very painful at the end because he did kind of lose it a few times on our family. Like, I don't know what to do, and what do you think about this? And it was,
Yep.
it was,
Sure.
but it was just that little willingness, or that, I guess he couldn't even conceive of the idea that that was how you should function. So, yes, he couldn't even conceive, or that others who did that were nuts.
Well, and
That's what he thought.
That's what he
Yeah.
felt.
And I think we've probably all gone through those many steps through many lifetimes. And then there comes that point where today, much like Bill and Helen, there must be another way, and we're ready to walk in that direction. Even though the walk can be quite challenging, at least there's that crack of, I know I can't do it on my own any longer, but you can't make that happen until the
And
time
then I
comes.
guess it's just, who is it then that's doing it? If I'm not doing it, but there's nobody else here, I guess that whole conundrum of how you can't, the pain has to be so much, and then you're supposed to have that pain in order to die. I don't know, I guess that was his.
Yeah.
fine
Well,
thing.
there's that delightful line in the Divorce where it says there's a limit to how much pain we can tolerate. And we can tolerate a lot.
Unless you think it's the way out.
Yep.
That's how
Sure.
once you die, you'll feel much better.
Well, yes, and as we know, the Course doesn't even give us that out, dang.
Absolutely at some level of peace, it makes no sense, but until you get there, you're fighting the whole thing tooth and nail so that it
Sure.
doesn't sweep you away.
All right, so look as the Holy Spirit looks and understand as he understands. His understanding looks back to God in remembrance of me. So again, God's plan is not my plan. There's a different road to hoe, I guess you could say. He is in communion with God always, and he is part of you. And as I described the Halloween costume, we have become the Halloween costume, and we've forgotten what God made of us, both myself and my brother. And so when we look out, we're looking through a lens that's been programmed to see the Halloween costume. And when we're looking at the Halloween costume, all the things we experience are right and correct, but they're not representative of what is real. And as long as we're looking through the lens of the ego, we're never going to find the other way to look at it. And, just because you close down and you choose the now for a moment, it doesn't mean that you're going to stay there, because we'll real quickly, oh, wait a minute, there's something back here I better play with, because our mind has literally been programmed to go back here. This is not our home. This is our home. But every time you catch that and go, wait, hold it. Maybe there's another way. Then I'm inviting that other way, that other remembrance of what he's offered us from the beginning. He is your guide to salvation because he holds the remembrance of things past and to come and brings them to the present. Well, there's a place that says it's not that you should never judge, it's that it is impossible for you to judge, because for you to judge, you would have to know everything from the past, the future, and now in order to judge. Well, none of us have the capability to be able to do this, even though we believe we do. We don't, but he does. He holds this gladness gently in your mind, asking only that you increase it in his name by sharing it to increase his joy in you. So each time you bring it back to, I don't know, show me through your lens, you are releasing the past and you're drawing to you the connection with the Holy Spirit that brings you to your awareness of who you are, as well as who your brother is. But don't be surprised that your eyes are going to continue to look at the Halloween costume, and it's going to judge what your brother is or says or does, as well as yourself. As Kathleen would say, why do I feel like, I'm a piece of shit, or I don't like myself, or there's something wrong with me? I mean, isn't that the story that's been running in our minds since day one?
We came with that.
Well, we did come with it, but we didn't realize we came with it. And I don't think anybody really realized how deeply seated that was
You got it.
till you start really observing it and examining and think, oh my gosh, that's running 24 hours a day, even if I'm not doing anything wrong.
We're coming in with that principle, that platform.
That platform,
Scarcity is
yes.
the platform we operate on.
Yes.
Here.
And so, of course, the whole world is going to reflect that to you, because that's what the mindset of that thought system portrays. So as we become a little sharper in the practice of the course, when you find yourself going there, you go, really? Do I want to hold that? Or do I want to ask him to show me who I really am?
That's your way of challenging what the course says. Challenge all your
Everything.
beliefs, your values, whatever.
Yes,
That's what Byron Katie is doing.
Yep.
Challenging.
yes,
And it makes a lot of sense looking at the
does.
stories you're telling
Oh
yourself
my God,
about yourself.
it's
Saying
mind-boggling.
you were abused when you were 5, or you're not 5 today.
Mhm.
I'm not 5 today. That was 50 years ago or whatever.
Right, yeah, but how many times do you repeat the story?
The same
That's-
story.
That's
Exactly.
the one.
Still there because I keep thinking about it.
Yes, and I keep feeding it, saying, yeah, which really represents, I don't really want the present
Right.
now. I would prefer to play in that and blame it on somebody else than be in the present.
I guess just don't know how to do it. They think there has to be some dramatic thing. I guess just, I feel when I go at Christmas to, I go inside first and I ask the Holy Spirit, how can I express more love? That's if that's what there is now, if that's what I would like, how. And I guess that makes it more like Christmas more often because I am looking for that,
Yep.
not necessarily with a present or something. I'm not looking to give anything. I'm just waiting for the Holy Spirit to
Right.
guide me.
Yep.
But then that makes it, then that's what creates my world. That I ask the Holy Spirit to recreate the world that looks like it sucks and everybody's running around like crazy. I don't look at that. I look at what I want
Yep.
in my life.
Yep.
And then I get it. Otherwise, I'm looking all over the place for something that I don't even want. I'm thinking they should do it different. I'm thinking they're, if our
Right, isn't that
government
the
or
truth?
this advertisement was different, then I wouldn't feel that way. But how is Jesus gonna advertise Christmas? And even that gets exploited because you don't really have you don't feel the energy, you just feel depleted by it, which is the whole total opposite of what you want.
Yep.
You wanna feel, the purpose is to like buoy you up, to make you, say Jesus was born, isn't that cool?
Choose the teacher of peace.
Right, so how, that's, I guess if you're looking for everything else, diamonds and all kinds of things to hit on Christmas, that if you don't have that, just like it says, if you don't have love, you can't have anything else.
Right.
Because you don't really, might have the thing in your hands for 5 minutes and then it's gone. So
Yep.
if you don't have love, you can't have anything else because it just
Right.
doesn't go and you won't have anything.
Right, and,
Which is very disappointing.
right, and the course talks about, in the sections around the theme of Christmas, it talks about the idea of, every moment that you ask for healing, you're being born again in your true self, which is, that's the gift that the course offers, not the physical stuff. But if we really have that, then we know we really have everything, no matter what we get or don't get physically.
And then that's what we give, that's what we.
And
share.
that's what we give, yes.
Call it the sharing with the Holy Spirit, you can't share with the ego. They keep everything for themselves and they think of how they need to get something, give it back to that other person, or it's got really like this kind of, like a corporate Holy Spirit or something.
Right.
To make them act in a certain way.
And at the same time, we have to be aware that the world is set up that way because that's the world we wanted set up, so that we would constantly chase our tail, try to figure out how to solve the problems in the world, and spend all our time down here feeling like an innocent victim because I lack, instead of going home where the real answer can be provided. And so it's a beautiful setup. It works so well. It's mind-boggling to me how well it works. Yeah. All right, so we're going to turn to text 245 if anybody wants to read along, and paragraph number 4. paragraph number 4. The ego has a strange notion of time, and it is with this notion that your questioning might well begin. The ego invests heavily in the past and in the end believes that the past is the only aspect of time that is meaningful. Remember that its emphasis on guilt enables it to ensure its continuity by making the future like the past and thus avoiding the present. By the notion of paying for the past in the future, the past becomes the determiner of the future, making them continuous without an intervening present. For the ego regards the past only as a brief transition to the future, in which it brings the past to the future by interrupting the present in the past terms. Isn't that lovely? All right, so the ego has a strange notion of time, and I would add the ego has a strange notion about everything. And it is with this notion that your questioning might well begin. So Jesus is inviting us, let's start to chop up this time experience and really examine, what is the journey that you go through when you're questioning or you're living through any experiences. The ego invests heavily in the past, and gosh, I'm surprised any of us are still standing. I mean, the churning of the past in the mind is like unmerciful. I guess is the best way I can say it. Unmerciful. It just. But I think if we really get that the reason why that is still so strongly penetrable in our mind is because ultimately we're still afraid of the now. We're too afraid of the abstractness of the now. And so this continues to churn. We throw in a little bit of the future occasionally as well while we're at it. But the past really, I don't know about the rest of you, but stuff that's happened 100 years ago is still going ram.
Well, the whole game is to keep us mindless.
Yes, and if I'm not in the now, I'm mindless.
The
Yes,
ego's game is mindless.
yes,
Because you might make another choice.
yes, perfect.
That's all that's going on here.
Yep.
Day in and day out.
Yep. So the ego invests heavily in the past and in the end believes that the past is the only aspect of time that is meaningful. Well, it is for the ego because it keeps me cycling in the separated state with no way out. And I mean, look at your day. Today I have this issue, and then, I might clean that up a little bit. And tomorrow morning I wake up and there's a whole nother one waiting for me on my bedstand, right? I mean, they just chop. And, do I have time to take a breath and be in the moment? Hell no. I got the next one that's beating on my door. And again, as he's asking us to, kind of look over this and check this out, question it. Look at how the ego has us by the tail and is taking us further and further into the insanity that on some level we know we don't want any longer, but because it's so thickly invested, it's there at my doorstep every day. Remember that its emphasis on guilt enables it to ensure its continuity by making the future like the past and thus avoiding the present. So its emphasis on guilt. And what's the emphasis on guilt? I believe I killed off God. I don't want to own that, even though this chart says every week nothing happened. Jesus is telling us, you think you killed me off. You didn't kill me off. Nothing's changed. Everything's perfect. Not a note in heavens has, what's the rest of that phrase?
Not one note in the heaven's song was missed.
Okay, there you go. Beautiful. Thank you. It was missed. I'm going to insist that it has been missed, because I don't trust that nothing happened.
That's a thought going on in the
It's
mind.
the thought going on in the mind all the time.
All the time.
All the time. And again, we're being asked, catch these moments when that stuff starts coming in. And then you can take a pause, even if you're not ready to let it go. You'll take at least a pause. And every pause is going to take you to that moment of now instead of the past. By the notion of paying for the past in the future, the past becomes the determiner of the future, making them continuous without intervening the present. Well, again, that's perfect for the ego. As long as I'm churning in my mind, no room for the present. Perfect. You got it going.
I can't choose again.
I can't choose again. Nope, the door's closed. But as we become aware of the dynamics of the ego and we begin to question, wait a minute, do I really, I mean, first of all, we have to start by even recognizing that's happening in our mind. And, you know, I can remember so clearly the day I became aware it was churning. And the ironic thing was something actually good had happened to me that day. But the mind started to flip it around and assure me that even the good thing wasn't good enough. It was like, oh, you. Anyways, right, yeah. So it's like catching it, and because before it's been doing this forever. We didn't even know it was doing this, but it was keeping that gap closed, that gap filled with the past so that I could not have access to the present. Okay. And it doesn't even mean a thing. It is the thoughts that churn within my mind as well that keep me in the past. Very sneaky little creature, which we invited to do this to ourselves because we were afraid of that love. And that's why, again, working on the workbook lessons, as we talked about earlier, are helping us to examine what's going on in our minds so that eventually we will not be duped by what the ego has to say or what the ego's got in charge for us. And we can catch it and go, oh, look at you. Oh boy, are you a sneaky one. But we don't judge ourselves because we're having those thoughts, because we identified with the ego. So we're not asked to feel guilty about recognizing that we're guilty. We're being asked to recognize that's the setup of the ego. And if you want to begin to slow down the ego, you know, to unroll or re-roll the carpet back and from time, we got to catch it and smile at it, not catch it and judge ourselves because we're doing it. Become aware of what the setup of the ego is and why it set it up, and question, is this really what I want to continue with? Or is it time for me to bring it on back?
So we want to run to the red dot.
Oh, yeah. run as
The
fast.
red dot. I don't want to think about this like this.
Yeah.
I want to see this differently. If that's, we can make that decision to do that.
And I think as we progress, we will run back to the dot faster and faster because we realize the futility of not doing that. And we realize the value of running towards it. Did you have something, Helene? You looked like you were churning there.
The heaviness of the past just sort of settled on my shoulders, and I go back sometimes to the physical act of being born and what that's like, and it's like, you know, you're all in wound, you know, and then you're dragged out and there's lights and noise and you don't know what the fuck is going on, and you know, you're clutching and you don't know what to do and you're confused and you're alone.
And then they smack you.
And it's terrifying. So we latch on to something because what we feel is lack. And what we want is to survive. I want to exist. Therefore, I am here. Okay. And that's the imprint that we start with.
Yeah.
And
I'm just serving.
to, 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 realize that it serves me Because it awakens compassion.
Yeah.
Because everybody is going through that.
Absolutely.
Everybody
Yeah.
is lost and alone and
Yeah.
full of fear.
And that image that you just created with every one of us at birth is the exact repetition of the original experience of separation. And it is really representative. We're going to play that out and play that out and play that out and reinforce that. And he says, but nothing happened. Don't fall in that trap again. Come on over here.
We took it serious.
Well, and it's hard,
That's
you know,
what
even
we
at
said.
the birth experience, hard not to take it seriously because it is imprinted on our psyche.
Do it over and over and over, different form. but we're
Absolutely.
replaying
Yeah.
that idea.
Yeah.
I have to survive.
I have
until
to
you do it.
survive. And, you know, talk about a good excuse not to live in the moment. I literally have to be in charge to survive.
That's what
It's
we're doing.
heavy, as you
We
said,
trust
heavy.
them, though.
Well, we can, but initially we don't have a clue that that's a possibility even. And, you know, Ken would always say, the number one most important thing about this course is that you recognize you have another choice. Before we did not know we had another choice. But now, and the thought that came up for me when you were talking about that is this idea of eventually we will come to not have to recycle the birth and death, you know, situation. So literally we can let that go and allow that new space to be where that's not a necessity. Yeah, beautiful. All right, one more line and then we'll close. For the ego regards the present only as a brief transition to the future in which it brings the past to the future by interpreting the present in past terms. So again, just think about how how deeply seated and strongly adhered to this whole past concept is. But keep remembering, in order to be in the now, I have to be willing to close the door to the past and future. And that's where I will have that experience that transcends who Mary Ann thinks she is.
And if you read it from the bottom up, you've won.
Well, there you go. I like that. I like that. See, we thought we won before, but we didn't. Now this is the way to really win. Okay, everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given and accept of this into the minds that you've created and which you love. Amen. All right, go forth among the people. Stay in the present. Bye.
Move forward.